Perea, thank you so much for being with us. It's such an honor to meet with you finally. I've learned a bit about you, and I'm so excited about the conversation today. If you could start by telling us a little bit about where did you grow up, and your journey to San Francisco State.
Okay. I'll try to not make it as long a journey as it has been, because we don't have enough time. I was born in southern New Mexico, a town called Las Cruces. It's close to the frontera with Juarez, so Mexico is right there. Depending on where you would go, just a few miles to the frontera. My father is Mescalero Apache. He was born on the Mescalero Apache Reservation, which is about 90 some miles from Las Cruces north. And my mother was born in Mexico because she was born in Mexico before that part of Mexico became the United States. So she was living in a place called Picacho, which is on the Rio Grande River. And while she was there, her father, grandfather, had been asked by the Spanish government to take care of giving out land. They called it merced. And so their job was to try and bring settlers. And so they would give land free to people who would come into that area around Picacho. And so, but that was Mexico at that time. So it was part of Spain. So the Gadsden Purchase took place. When the Gadsden Purchase took place down in that part of the country, she became a citizen of the United States immediately, the family did. So she was born in Mexico, but really born in the United States, kind of at the same time. I was born there in 1941. I went to elementary school there, middle school, high school, actually junior high school. I went to college at New Mexico State University. I did a dual degree or joint degree, one in science, biological sciences. My interest was looking at range management, and I did a music degree as well. I played the violin. Violin helped me. I actually paid my way through college. I got a scholarship to play the violin, and so I played in the university orchestra, played in the El Paso Symphony Orchestra. But my best playing was done with mariachis in Chihuahua in northern Mexico. I used to go on Sundays or for weekends and with a group of mariachis, and we would play mariachi music for the beer gardens, which was great fun. When I left there, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. Vietnam was full blown. I went to see whether they were going to take me in terms of Vietnam. They did not. I was given a 4 eye because of my eyes. And so I joined the Peace Corps. And I had a good friend in college who was in Peace Corps 1. And he went to Ghana, excuse me. And so I decided that I was going to go to, try to go to Peace Corps. So I applied. I wanted to go in public health. I wanted to go to the South Pacific because that was just opening up. And so I was accepted to go to a country called Nigeria. I had never heard of Nigeria in my life. Las Cruces, you don't hear about Chile. You hear a lot about Chile. But Nigeria, no. I had a world map going through it, couldn't find Nigeria in the South Pacific. So when I finally found it, I thought, whoa, do I want to go to Nigeria? Best decision of my life. So my training was in Boston. I got to meet Chinua Achebe, learned about things that in my whole life I would never have expected to learn. Buckminster Fuller was part of the training. Learned to speak oval, a small amount, but primarily pidgin, because the part of Nigeria that I was going to go to was really, it had multiple languages, and so pidgin was really kind of the language. And so I went to Nigeria. I went to, my village there was Otwa. Otwa was 7 villages that made up one big area called Otwa. Each village had a separate name and had a separate Owa, who was a leader. So I spent a year there teaching. I taught science, biology. I also taught English because I spoke English. It was wonderful. No electricity, no running water. It was like nothing I'd ever experienced, and the people were absolutely wonderful. So I was there for a year. We had a war, the Biafran War, and so our area was right on the border of the north, so the Hausa, and so I was involved with a Catholic priest in taking young kids back through different areas of danger to their families back across the Niger to what was then called Biafra, which was the eastern part of Nigeria. And then we were evacuated. We floated down the Niger River. We've done that before. Took us to Ghana. From Ghana, went to Tanzania, learned to speak Kiswahili, taught English, taught science, and Tanzania was totally different from Nigeria. But I was at a place called Bwiru, which was on Lake Victoria, and so I got to do a lot of science in the Serengeti. Met my wife, got married in Tanga, which is on the Indian Ocean. At that time, civil rights in the United States was really starting to get hot. We decided that it would be best for us to come back here. So we came back. We bought a ticket with the money that we had, and we arrived in San Francisco with about $74. That was about it. My wife's sister lived in Half Moon Bay, and so we stayed with her. And she had heard about a special program called Teacher Corps. And Teacher Corps was at San Francisco State. Why don't you go check it out? So I called and I said, I understand you have a program. I said, I'm a returning Peace Corps volunteer. And they said, wow, do you want to be a teacher? And I said, well, that's what I did, was teach. So I said, okay, so why don't you come for an interview? I came for an interview at the church over here on Holloway and Junipero. So I did an interview. I was accepted to the program. The program was a program that allowed you to get an elementary life credential, California, with a master's from education here, which I did. And so we were here for about a year. Then at the end of that time, or during that time, we were trying to decide what we were going to do. I thought I would teach, but I was not hired by San Francisco Unified, primarily because I was involved with the first strike against the district. They were teaching Soul on Ice, and so they fired the teacher and banned the book. And so at that time I was teaching up on the hill, Trail Hill. And so we went on strike. And so I was not hired. So I thought maybe I'd stay here, but then ran into some problems in Salinas, taking some students down to visit classrooms there, and so I was let go by San Francisco State University, College of Education as well. So at the same time, a good friend of mine, John Collier Jr., and also John Connolly, had told me about a program in Arizona on the Navajo Reservation. And so I wrote, talked to some people. They said, come on out. So we packed up, went to a place called Rough Rock, Arizona. So I went there. I was going to teach middle school, but they asked me if I would work with them to establish a high school. So I worked with them, and we established the first community-controlled high school on the reservation, Navajo reservation. And I became the first principal. So while we were there, part of my becoming the first principal was that I had asked that I be allowed to train my replacement, that it should be a community person. So I did that. I trained that person, and that person was ready. We left, and we went across the state to New Mexico, to a place called Dulce, which is on the Hickory Apache River. And there I was the director of a program. They were trying to, at that time, prior to going there, they were averaging pretty close to 2 student suicides a year, high school students. So part of my charge was to eliminate suicides, and so went there, met with elders, talked with different people, medicine men, and decided that what was missing was the culture. That in the schools they had eliminated the culture. So we reintroduced the culture. We reintroduced the language. We started programs for young girls to do basket weaving in a traditional way. Young boys to begin to do other kinds of work. For older men, how to become medicine men. We had a medicine man training program. So we were there for about 4 years or so, something like that. And then he came along, and he came along in March. I got a call from a good friend of mine here, Hal Johnson, who said that there was a program starting here for training bilingual teachers, and would I be interested in coming here and being the director of that program. So I said that I would be interested in coming out for an interview. So we came out actually before he was born. He was still, we came out, I came for an interview, and I was offered a job here as the first co-coordinator of the bilingual teacher training program. It was a joint program between education and ethnic studies. And we had Spanish, we had Chinese, Cantonese at that time. We had Japanese, and we had Tagalog. And so
what year was that?
that was in that was would have been 74
Okay.
when I came out for the interview. No, 75, yeah, because you were born. Yeah, so 75. So I came here in 1975 again.
Okay.
Left in 1970, came back in 75.
Okay, great. And what years were you in San Francisco? You were.
But from 75 till now.
Okay, but before that.
Before that, I was here from 68 to 70.
Okay, so
The end of 68 to 70.
Okay, great.
Um,
Do we want to?
and then that was it. So that's how I got here.
Yeah, so during your presence at Western State from 68 to 70, what were some of the organizations that you became involved in?
And that were directly related to the strike.
Okay. Well, there were none. There were no organizations that I was involved with that were directly related to the strike, but there was an organization that I was involved with that was generally involved with the strike from the community perspective, and that was the Mission Coalition. Worked with them around different kinds of training programs, set up an after-school program at the Garland Hotel. Yeah, the Garland Hotel, which at that time was on 16th and Valencia, and was where most of the Native people in San Francisco at that time lived, because that's where they first came during relocation. So the government was relocating American Indians through about 68, was it? Or
into that time.
yeah, into that time period. And so when they came into the Bay Area, they either went to Oakland or they came here. And they came here, they went to Mission Indian Center, which was down in that area. That was where the families lived. So the biggest organization, or the main organization, was that. I was ancillarily involved with the Black Panthers, but that was really my wife, because she was involved with the Panthers at that time as an office manager for their main offices here downtown in San Francisco. So I would get involved there, but I was not heavily involved with that, just again on this.
During that time period, were you familiar with the different speakers on campus?
Yes.
Were there any American Indian speakers?
No.
Yeah.
What role did you play during the strike? How did you get involved?
Well, my main involvement was with Richard Oakes.
Okay.
Richard and I, well, actually, he lived in the Garden Hotel. And so he and I, we started a Saturday school and also a breakfast for the kids there. And so working with him, became involved with another group of Native students who were involved with the anthropology program here at State, which is really where the bulk of Native American students were involved, were housed. So they were across the campus working with Louis Kemitzer, who was an anthropology professor. And then one of the professors that I worked with, who was John Condor and John Collier. And so there would be meetings, usually at Connolly's house, and we would go to those meetings. And there would be discussions about things that were going to happen. The students that I spoke with, Richard primarily, was that there wasn't that much involvement necessarily wanted of natives because they were doing their own thing, kind of.
Can you talk about Richard Oakes more?
Well, he was a very interesting person. My memory, now this is a long time ago, I know that he was totally committed to Indian, particularly children. He had a strong belief that the children had to be safe and they had to be educated. That without education, they would continue to be moved around the way the government wanted to move them around. And so he saw education as being primary to what needed to happen, which is like one of the reasons I think that we became involved, is that we both believed education was important.
Yeah. During your presence at Desert State, how did you see the changes over the years within the college?
Well, the battle that we went through, and I have to say that Jim Hirabayashi, Jim understood that the administration was going to get its way, no matter what. But they didn't have to get all of their way. And so there were places in what they wanted that he felt that ethnic studies could fit. But ethnic studies had to be a particular way for that to happen. And he tried really hard, meeting with us. We would meet, we would talk, we would, how are we going to become ethnic studies as a part of the institution without becoming the institution? Because that was the main discussion that was taking place. How do you not become internally colonized, so to speak, right? Because if you're part of the institution and you're trying to fight the institution to not be part of the institution, what do you give up to be part of the institution? What are you going to hold on not to be part of the institution? So those were always for me anyway, in the discussions that we had, those were always the discussions and the tensions that I think a lot of the tension that was felt within the college itself. Jim, I think, really worked with that the best. And he was really the person who took us from studies to a college. So, and once we became a college, the whole question of whether there would be tenure or not, it ended. At that point, there was going to be tenure, there was going to be tenure track. You were going to have FTEs, you were going to have FTESs. You were going to have to fall into that mode.
What year was that?
That would have been 1979, 1980.
And Jim was dean from like until 79 or?
Yeah,
Who was our first dean?
until he left.
Okay.
And then
Phil came.
Phil.
Okay.
Phil, so let me be really honest, I love Phil, okay, still today. I remember just tons and tons of things. He would not allow anything to go wrong. He attacked whoever the president was, whenever he felt the president or whomever needed to be attacked, he would attack. And he did it on the basis of that this place is the only place that is what it is. And we're going to remain who it is we are, regardless of what you try to do to us. And so he was in people's faces all the time. And so when you were with him, when you went to a meeting, you expected that there was going to be a row. And not always, but quite a bit of the time, he was never ever going to let things happen. When Corrigan was hired, Bob Corrigan, he went to Bob Corrigan and told him, you might have come from all these places, you're this liberal from Baptist, but you don't know anything about us out here. And you sure don't know about black people here. So don't you come out here and tell us who we are. Right off the bat. Corrigan looked at everybody and said, what did I do? Right? And Phil said, you took the job. We're part of you now, not you otherwise. We are part of you. You've got to be then listening to us, doing what we are saying you need to do. You've got to protect us. And in the end, Corrigan protected us.
What contributions do you think Phil made?
Oh, God. Well, I think probably the first contribution, the most important contribution, was that we became a stable college. We weren't necessarily accepted, right? But we were in there when GE came out in 1980. It was Phil. We were in HHS at that time. We had meetings talking about how we were going to approach politically GE. Because we understood, just like the rest of the institution understood, that GE was going to be our lifeline. But we didn't want it to become our lifeline and at the same time somehow dilute who it is we are. Right? And so it had to be, we had to have this give and take. So there were certain things where the institution or the university said, well, you know, you can't teach English. I mean, nobody in ethnic studies can speak English. To teach English, what is this, right, kind of thing. Where at the same time, anthropology was saying, well, you know, we can teach about ancient Mesopotamia and all these kinds of things. And so Phil worked with that. He did the work that needed to be done with the president at that time. He did the work that needed to be done with the other deans. So he was really kind of, he became, I don't want to call him a catalyst because we didn't necessarily mix, but he was like a catalyst in that he went in like this. And so here we are. You may not like us, you may not even want to be in the same room with us, but we are here, you're going to accept us no matter what. And so we were there. If you were a chair in the departments, you needed to be there. You needed to go out, you needed to be seen because you represented the college. So that was what he did. He made sure that the college became a college in terms of people seeing it and respecting it. Plus, he wasn't afraid.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't, he would say, what are they going to do to me?
Mm-hmm.
So I would say Phil was instrumental. Jim was the catalyst.
Yeah.
Jim was the person who took us when we were like this.
Yeah.
And out of that came the beginning. Phil came in, and then we moved on.